All right, it's time to invite God to this party. Why haven't we talked about God? Well, we haven't talked about God in the classical way that people do because we've relegated God to the 15th century. Imagine that you were sick and you wanted to go to a doctor. So instead of going to a UCLA, Harvard, Sorbonne, well-trained doctor, you decide to find someone who uses 15th century leeches. You put a leech and you get the blood out of your body, or you do bloodletting, and that's how you're going to treat your advanced leukemia. God forbid, as it were. That's a very bad idea. That is to say, in the 21st century, we're not going to turn to, 15th century medicine. Paradoxically, that's exactly what we do with God. We go to a 15th century, pre-modern or early modern view of God. Either God as a cosmic vending machine, ethnocentric, owned by one religion, more than slightly homophobic God, or to a kind of deist God who's kind of an abstraction who has little to do with us and seems to be, heavily in attendance at liberal Protestant churches and liberal Jewish churches, meaning not a lot of God happening. Right? God becomes a kind of abstraction who's all but not meaningful in any compelling way. So the God you don't believe in, right? The God that's too small, the God who's anti-science, the God who is gay bashing, right? The God who is ethnocentric, right? The God who punishes you for ritual infractions that there's no way you could have observed, the God who kills you and kills your family, right? All those gods, right? They don't exist. The God you don't believe in doesn't exist. So we can't go to that God. So we have to find a deeper sense of divinity. And we can't even go to God who's the infinity of power. Now, the God who's the infinity of power is real, obviously. There's exponential power in reality. If one even begins to imagine, right, what the power of reality as a jet propulsion plane is a joke, right, compared to a supernova. And a supernova is a joke compared to the power, right, of the Big Bang, and and on, right? Reality has long lines of zeros, right, in exponential power, right, in terms of, right, that which motivates and drives reality. And so, wow, right, is there exponential power in the world that's inexplicable in simply placid, reductionist, disqualified, materialistic terms? Well, of course there is. And you can actually check out some really good, well done and accurate films, short films made by different sectors of the fundamentalist movement who talk about power. You want to know what real power is? Is it this boxer? Is it that wrestler? Is it jet propulsion? Is it a supernova? Is it the power of the Big Bang? And they keep exponentializing power until they say, wow, that's God power. Now, that's true, and that's beautiful. There's enormous truth to that. But it doesn't actually inspire goodness. And it doesn't inspire truth. It doesn't inspire beauty. It doesn't inspire nobility. It doesn't inspire human dignity. It doesn't inspire responsibility. It actually is emasculating. That is to say, oh my God, what am I in this story? I'm nothing. Now, the realization that I am, in some sense, this small creature in this vast expanse is in one sense important. And I can actually locate myself. Rudolf Otto, the great German philosopher, called it creature consciousness. And yet, I've got to be able to claim my dignity. On the one hand, ma enosh ki tizkerenu, the psalmist says, what is the human being that should even be mindful of him? Right, which is the sense of creature consciousness. But on the other hand, says the psalmist, La techasreu ma'at me'elohim, you're a little bit less than God. So where do I find my dignity? Where do I find my power? Where do I find my potency? Not as separate from the divine, but as an expression of the divine. Where do I find the divine force that inspires me to be an outrageous lover? Right, where do I find the divine force that invites me to be tender to those who are so deeply hurt and to the parts of myself that are deeply hurt? Where's the divine force that invites me to be kind? Kindness. Where's the divine force that invites me to build a hospital, right? For people who are powerless to build a hospital for themselves. Where's the divine force that invites me to extend my circle of care and concern and love to every human being on the planet? We're used to talking about God in the great traditions as the infinity of power. But when I actually access the interior face of cosmos, when I actually find my way inside, both through the eye of the heart and through the sciences, which are the exterior expression of the eye of the heart, the eye of the senses and the eye of the mind, I realize that reality is moving towards ever greater intimacies, that infinity desired finitude, because the infinite is intimate. And so infinity desired intimacy. That's shocking. And that infinity is not a cold, desiccated infinity. Infinity is the infinity of intimacy. I need to understand that God is not only the infinity of power, but God is the infinity of intimacy. So to try and get what that means, say you love someone, and you can't quite find them. And you've got that feeling, I can't quite find them. And so you feel somehow, right, I can't find them. I can't find my beloved. So imagine the divine who's the beloved of all. Imagine the divine who feels all of reality. Because what is intimacy? Intimacy is feel me, feeling you. Feel you, feeling me. Then it loops around again. Intimacy means feel me, feeling you, feeling me. Feel you, feeling me, feeling you. There's this loop of intimacy. In divinity, if you really get the sciences, both the exterior sciences, the exterior expression of reality as the evolution of intimacy. Right? Intimacy is new possibilities created through reconfiguring parts in a way that a new whole emerges that's greater than the sum of the parts, which is a new configuration of intimacy. That's what drives literally reality. So what a new configuration of intimacy does is it yields a new emergent. It creates something new. It creates new possibility. So to say that God is the infinity of intimacy is also to say that God is the possibility of possibility. It's like, wow, right? God is the infinity of intimacy, which literally means, because what intimacy means is new possibility, new emergent, that which didn't exist before, the creative advance of novelty, in Whitehead's phrase. There's newness that didn't exist. Fairy dust. It's the fairy dust of, it's the magic of science. It's the magic of the interior structure of reality, which pushes towards new manifestations, new emergence, new possibilities. So God, the infinite creative force of cosmos, the infinity of intimacy that knows your name, is the possibility of possibility. Now that's a God I can believe in. God's not just the possibility of possibility that knows your name. God's the infinity of intimacy that cares desperately about every dimension of your life. Like, oh, right, that's huge. And we begin to introduce something new. Because what's happened in our era is we're willing, in the non-fundamentalist world, we're willing to talk about God in kind of mystical Buddhist or Hebrew or Christian terms, although we might not use that language, which is, oh, God lives in me, which is beautiful, but insufficient. Right? God lives in me, yes, but that doesn't just mean that God is the humanistic spark in me. Right? God lives in me means that I'm actually, in some sense, identical. It's the ontic identity with Source. Right? It's the supreme unity with the Godhead. That's a big thing to say. People use it very casually. Oh, you're right, God's in me. Well, whoa, yes, and no, actually, you're not separate from. To actually realize that you are emergent from, right, the evolutionary process, which is an expression of the Big Bang, which itself is sourced in no thing, right, is to realize, what am I? I'm a finite discretion of infinity. And I'm a finite expression of the infinite. But since the infinite's not divisible, it means the whole infinite lives in me. So that's beautiful. That's gorgeous. That's a genuine enlightenment realization, right? A genuine realization that I am that, tattvam asi. That's God in the first person. And we can hold that. It's big. To really get it is huge. But we hold slivers of it when we say, oh, God lives in me. Right? We're reaching for that. We're approximating it. We can hold somewhat God in the third person, which is God as a force of cosmos. God as the energetic flow. God is the ceaseless creativity of cosmos. God is the infinity of power. Now, those are all third-person views of the divine. So we have fragrances of, we can somehow approach a first-person view of the divine. We can somehow access at least a fragrance of a third-person view of the divine, but they both leave us very lonely. Right? Streams of energy, or the feeling that, oh my God, it's all in me and I am all of it, but I want to talk to someone. Well, talk to yourself, you're God. Well, I want to talk to someone. So I'm left. So we need to actually reclaim an elemental part of the divine truth that's gotten lost, which is what we might call, right, let's say in integral theories terms, but also the great terms of Kashmir Shaivism, which is the original Hinduism, and the great terms of the Zohar, which is the original Hebrew tradition, right, where God is ani, ata, and hu. Roughly translated, right? It's first, second, and third person. Right? God actually appears in all three. So we've talked about God in first person, we've talked about God in third person. What is God in second person? So God in second person is the God who knows your name. Right? It's the God who is ultimately personal, but not Santa Claus. Right? Not Jack on Mars. God as the infinity of intimacy. And imagine your most intimate moment. Right? And then exponentialize that. Deepen it, deepen it, deepen it, times 10, times 20, times 30, times 40, times 50, times 60, right? Times 100 million, right? And just keep going. Times a billion, times 100, right? Right? God is the infinity of intimacy that knows your name. And that's like, there's a beautiful story in the mystical tradition about one of the masters who would go to make a blessing, which is a particular kind of formula in Hebrew. And the blessing is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam she'akol nהיה bidvaro. Source of all blessings are you, God. Everything is created through your word. Or it might be Hamotzi lecha min haaretz, who brings bread from the earth. Or there's a whole series of different blessings you say in different moments, and particularly before eating. So he would go, Baruch atah, blessed are you. You. And he would faint in ecstasy. He could never make a blessing because he couldn't get past the realization of you. Right? So like, wow. Right? So God in second person is not a dogma. Right? It's not a superstitious idea. It's an actual realization of the quality of personalness. It's the personal beyond the process. It's the personal beyond the impersonal. So it's sort of like level 1 personality, level 2 process, impersonal. Right? The Buddhists sometimes call it the absolute. But then level 3 is the personal beyond the impersonal. Right? The infinity of personhood, the infinity of intimacy that knows my name. Okay, that's a God I can talk to. That's real. Right? That's the interior quality of the intimate universe. Now let's see if we can access that. Let's see if we can find that. So first what we're saying is that God hears you. Again, not Santa Claus and Jack. God hears you. Well, how do I know? Well, if I would ask you, KK, did you hear what I'm saying? You say, oh yeah, I did. Well, what did you say? Oh, you said God hears you. And I'd say, wow, how'd you hear me? And you'd say, well, I used my ears. So, well, okay, you technically used your ears, but your ears weren't hearing me. You were hearing me. Right? Christina was hearing me, not your ears. Well, you'd say, oh, right, Christina's ears. No, not Christina's ears. Christina heard me. Oh, right, Christina heard me. Her ears were a vehicle, a way that happened. Oh, what's Christina? Oh, Christina she's intelligent. Right? She's conscious. There's Christina-ness. Right? Christina-ness heard me. Now, if Christina heard me, which is an expression of consciousness, of intelligence. Now we know Christina is very wise, very intelligent, very conscious. But could it be like in all of Europe, there's someone like a little more intelligent, a little more conscious? Maybe, right? How about like all of Asia? How about like all of, I don't know, Antarctica? Probably not. No, all of Antarctica, right? All of, right? So in other words, when Christina as reality or consciousness having a Christina experience, intelligence having a Christina experience hears me, it's not just Christina that hears me, right? Obviously the field of intelligence can hear me, right? Christina is an expression of a larger field. So if Christina, a discrete unit in that field, can hear me, obviously the field itself has access. The field itself can hear me. The field of consciousness, the field of intelligence hears me. So that's the core of prayer. Prayer means I'm heard. Right? That same field before human neocortex that manifested mitosis and meiosis and photosynthesis, that infinitely intelligent field hears me, just like it allows discrete expressions of the field to hear me. That's very powerful. It's a very simple pointing out. Just like I hear you, the larger intelligence in which I participate hears you. So that's the beginning of it. I begin to understand that God is the infinity of intimacy that knows my name. Now that doesn't preclude, that doesn't undermine that God is the infinity of power. Right? What it means though is that that power is not just without, that power is within. That power is exponentially increasing. That power is exponentially increasing intimacy. Right? It's the evolution of reality of intimacy. So God's the infinity of intimacy that knows my name.